So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Nathan Littauer Hospital. My name is Larry Kelly. I'm the president and CEO of the hospital. We're here, I wanted to let you know, we're here in what we call our reflection garden. This is an ongoing project by our volunteers and auxiliary. From the last 6 years or so, they've been working on this. It's almost finished, but it's really a great... Here we go. Does that work? That doesn't work. Yeah.
It does now.
All right. So this is about the 6th year of their 7-year project. Staff to not from hospital inpatients, but from everything else we do. Providers, physicians, employees are extremely proud of the excellent care we provide to everybody. We're honored to have some of the team visit a long history that everybody strives to ensure access to quality health care to all citizens of America. He has been particularly supportive of those like illness then so it's vitally important that rural hospitals that are like us, that provide that needed care, exist. Called the Medicare Dependent Hospital Program that supports hospitals like Nathan Littauer Hospital that are small, rural, and have more than 60% of their inpatients or patient days attributed to Medicare patients. Here, 69% of our patient days are attributed to Medicare. So this program provides additional reimbursement to hospitals like us to maintain our ability to exist and provide quality, accessible care. In fact, we get over $1 million a year from that program. It's critical to our hospital and ultimately to the patients we serve. So we applaud Senator Schumer's sponsorship of the Senate bill on behalf of us and all of the Medicare dependent hospitals across America to have the program reauthorized and made permanent. Before I turn the podium over to Senator Schumer, I just want to say something that's important to say at this point in time. This hospital is very proud of our diversity. Just counting on my hands, we have employees from 5 continents and at least countries that I bet there's more. And I'm sure they practice at least 16 different religions. And I believe that hate groups do not have much of a presence in this area, nor do I believe they have a chance to grow. True, loyal, patriotic Americans abhor these hate groups, twisted, divisive positions, And this county and this region is full of true, loyal, patriotic. So, with that, I'm pleased to turn this over to Senator Schumer. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Lawrence Kelly, the CEO of this great institution, Nathan Littauer Hospital, and so many who've come here. Christine Perry, our Vice President and Compliance Officer. Steve Kroll, who I've known for a long time. He's the Vice Chair of Cobleskill Regional. We have Gloversville Mayor Dayton King. We have a lot of representatives of 1199, the local union, as well as B. Grouse, who's head of Haney's, which is the Hospital Association of New York State, who I work with very, very closely, as well as so many others who are here, and I appreciate it. First, it's great to be back in this county. As you know, I visit every county every year, but I visited this county more than every year, especially when there were the floods and we had trouble in Canajoharie, with beech nut and things like that. But it's the time to what you just said. I know the people of this county. My dad is from Utica. They are great Americans, and hate has no place in this country. And the overwhelming majority of people, the 99.9%, are Americans in the greatest and truest sense of the word, non-divisive and non-hating, but loving this country and loving their families and loving this region. So I appreciate that very, very much. And as I said, I know because my dad's from Utica. He worked, only the old people will remember, in the doeskin tissue factory. My grandfather worked in the doeskin tissue factory, paper worker. He was involved in the paper worker union. My father graduated from UFA, which no longer exists, Utica Free Academy. Anyway, it's great to be here. And I'm here because, as you say, I do care about our rural hospitals for a whole lot of reasons. And I want to thank all the employees here, from the top-notch doctors and administrators, to the nurses, to the clerical workers, all the way down to the people who come in late at night, clean up the floors, and leave the place spotlessly clean and sanitary for the next day. It's a great institution, one of the largest employers here in Fulton County, and most important, dealing in God's greatest gift to every one of us, which is life itself. So I thank you all for the great work that you do, and I am very aware of the needs of rural hospitals. In America, we believe that everyone should be treated equally. Reference to what you said, what Larry said. Lawrence, are you a Larry or are you a Lawrence?
I'm a Larry.
Okay, good. Larry said. I'm a Chuck. Charles is my name. But in any case, rural people in smaller towns and cities, rural areas, are entitled to every bit as good health care as people in the larger cities. That means you have to have the highest of quality at your hospitals. But it's harder. It's harder for a bunch of reasons. First, there's not as many people. You know, in Albany or in Syracuse, they have to buy one of these NMR machines that cost, what, about $3 million? $2 million, excuse me, only $2 million. But in a big city, you can run those pretty much 24/7. In a rural area, you can't. You don't have the volume. But the people here are as entitled to get an NMR machine when they need it as someone in Syracuse, Albany, New York City. Then you have greater distances to cover. We all know that often finding someone who has a stroke or some other illness in the first 5 minutes is important. You got to get there. It's harder to do than when you're in a densely populated area. And then, of course, in our rural areas, in a lot of places, most places, there's a larger elderly population. So there's a greater Medicare population. And so realizing that, Congress passed, and I helped pass it, when I was just almost a teenager in 1990, some laws. I wasn't a teenager, but I wasn't, anyway, I won't get into that. but we passed laws to specially help rural hospitals. There were two in particular. It was called the Low Volume Hospital Program. That's for the low volume, and the Medicare Dependent Hospital Program. That's for the large volume of Medicare people. And they have been vital to hospitals like Nathan Littauer, who serve tens of thousands of people every year. They provide economies of, when you can't do economies of scale, the program, the low volume program, makes up to it. And of course, the Medicare program was explained very well by Larry. Okay, so it's very, very important, and it's been vital to keeping Nathan Littauer going and giving the top-notch care that it does. Nathan Littauer, without this program, could lose about $1.2 million. St. Mary's over in Amsterdam, I have visited St. Mary's. We have someone from St. Mary's here? Nope, okay, but they would lose $1.7 million. Cobleskill, we do have someone from Cobleskill here, could lose $500,000. That's a lot of money. And it would mean job loss. And even more importantly, it would mean lower quality health care. So I fight for this funding. I have every year. And this is one of those things, thank God, that has some bipartisan support in Albany, in Washington, even though there's so much partisanship there. And so the two leading sponsors, coincidentally, are the two Charles E's of the Senate. Charles E. Schumer, Democrat of New York, and Charles E. Grassley, Republican of Iowa. And we fight hard for these programs, and so far we've kept them successful, kept them going. But with all the cuts you've heard and read about in healthcare, it's harder. And so we have a big fight ahead of us, and that's why I've come here. These programs have just expired on September 30th. Now, they've expired in the past, but if we can put them back in place within a few months, the payments can be retroactive and doesn't put a dent in our rural hospitals' budget. If we don't renew them or let them stay out for a long time, the hospitals are out of money and we have big, big trouble. So I am here to tell the residents of the Hudson Valley in Fulton, Montgomery, Schoharie counties that I am going to do everything I can and use whatever clout I have as minority leader in the United States Senate to make sure these programs are fully funded before the new year. Let me give you some numbers here about Nathan Littauer. It serves 31,400 residents, 62%, the highest in the state, covered by either Medicare or Medicaid. The hospital's emergency room received 24,000 visits. Figure that out. I'm trying to figure out how many come a minute. 66 a day, so that would be 3 an hour. 2 3/4 an hour. And it's a major employer, as I said, employing 1,000 people. I asked Larry if probably you or Hudson Valley or Fulton Montgomery Community College is probably the biggest employer. We don't know which, but one of the two probably. So we have to get these programs going. We are going to have a big, big budget negotiation in December. And the Democrats and Republicans in the House and Senate get together and say, what can we agree on? And so they need my support to do that. And I am going to say, unless you renew this program, don't count on my support. And in the past, at least, that's been able to get these programs done. But we need you to raise your voices, to tell particularly your members of the House, wherever you live, that this program is important to you. When they were going to decimate health care a few months ago, and our rural hospitals, many of them would have been put out of business by the proposal the president made and was defeated. In part, the tide was turned because both rural hospitals and their employees, whatever their party affiliation, went to their congressmen and senators and said, you can't do this to us. So I hope you'll do that again on the rural hospital issue, because you were so successful. So with that, I'm happy. Who speaks next? Larry? Anyone? Steve Mann? Steve Mann, as you know, has run our office, our local office in Albany since I started. I always like to tell a story. So my chief of staff is Martin Brennan. He's a devout Catholic. And when the Pope, the Holy Father, came to New York City, I got Martin Brennan to meet the Pope. It was one of the greatest days of my life. The guy had worked so hard for me, and he was in heaven. Well, to Steve Mann, he's Protestant. So the Pope wasn't at the top of his list. Guess who was? Better than the Pope.
Derek Jeter or something like that.
Bruce Springsteen. And I got him to meet Bruce Springsteen when he opened his show on Broadway last night. And I feel so good. Yeah. So if you go to his website, you'll see him and the real boss. The boss and the boss taking a picture together. But he's a great guy. Is anyone else? I was calling I always go on tangents. I was calling on Steve to ask, is anyone else supposed to speak? Do any of you want to say anything?
I've got something I
Larry.
need to do.
Okay, and then we'll take questions.
Take something out of here. So everybody knows that Senator Schumer has a big job ahead in the next 3 years and 3 months. And so we're handing him a tool belt,
Yes.
full of energy bars, because
Isn't that great?
we think you're going to need it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can we get this for our website? Who's got Steve? Yeah, good. If you can get it, well, let me get it right. Okay, good. There we go. Yes, Esther, you do. There's Steve Barton. There you go. That's great. Thank you. What a great gift.
Grouse would like to say.
Okay, we have Dee Grouse. She represents something called, as the abbreviation we always call it and love it, Haney's. It's the Hospital Association of New York State. How many hospitals you represent, Dee?
Almost 200.
200 hospitals, big and small, in New York State. And we all band together to help each other. Dee.
Thank you, Senator. Actually, Senator, I just wanted to say thank you. And most of our offices are in Albany, but we do have a Washington, D.C. office. And Senator Schumer, I think you downplayed the hard work that you have in Washington, D.C. every day. The climate is brutal. And I can tell you from firsthand that Senator Schumer and his very dedicated staff are battling every single day for New York State and New York State's healthcare system. And he's doing a fantastic job. I think it speaks volumes that he has been able to keep the Democratic caucus 100% behind him on every key issue. And it's a testament to his leadership and his dedication to the state of New York. So I just wanted to thank you personally,
Thank
Senator.
you, Bea. Well, thank you. You help us all the time. But my job is not as important as all of your jobs, which is, again, keeping people healthy and alive. So thank you for that. And helping them give birth, like beautiful Amelia, 9 days old, who I met in the baby box room. Okay, questions from the press.
Yes, Senator, how did this inspire you? Is that important? Why let it expire?
Well, they let it expire in a few years in the past as well. Some people are against this. There are some people in Washington who don't want to fund our hospitals, or they say every tub on its own bottom. If rural hospitals if it costs them more to run their hospitals, they should pay more. They should charge the patients and insurance companies more. But that would end up hurting health care for people. And so I think that's a bad idea. In America, we've always had a tradition of trying to help one another, and this is part of it. But some people in Washington these days, more than ever, are against that tradition.
Do you have a statewide number on how many people are affected?
Yes, we do. How many? There are rural hospitals. New York State, by the way, people don't know this because they think, oh, New York City. We have the third largest rural population in America. And we have one of the largest amounts of rural hospitals. In every rural county you'll find one. I visit a lot of them. And B, I'll bet, can get you, where's B go? B can get you how many rural hospitals are there in New York State? I'd say 40 or 50. Yeah. 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 Okay, other questions?
Off topic.
No, we'll go to on topic first, but we have a very inquisitive news corps in the capital region, so they ask off topic questions as well, and I always try to answer them. Yes. Channel 10. Anyone on topic, or we covered it well? Larry. Larry, you got to come here to the mics.
Well, I always
It's okay.
try to be positive. And so I don't want to scare employees into thinking that the hospital could go under, the hospital could not survive. We will figure out how to survive. But as the senator said, $1.2 million is a lot of money to a hospital our size. And so what would are there things that we would not be able to do? We just opened a primary care center, a beautiful building, $2+ million, to build a center in Fonda, a very disadvantaged town that had zero health care in it. We just opened that 6 weeks ago. So
You wouldn't have been able
Would
to do
we-
it probably if you didn't
would
have
we
the room.
take that risk if we were just breaking even, if we were losing money? I don't think so. So, you know, we would figure out how to keep this hospital open, but we're trying to be a regional healthcare provider, and it would impact our ability to do that.
Would layoffs be inevitable if this funding?
No.
He doesn't
no.
like to say that.
No, it's not. Nothing's inevitable.
Right. But just think of this. I don't need this. I'm from downstate. I talk loud. Anyway, if they couldn't have built this unit in Fonda, since getting someone to if you have an emergency, getting someone to a facility in the first 5 minutes often depends whether you live or die, they're going to save lives. Those people don't know who they are. But that's what's going to happen. So if they couldn't do this, you can say it's life and death. And I think that's fair, and Larry wouldn't refute it. Okay? Okay, you want to go off topic?
Yes.
Wait, she asked first for an off topic. Yes, I do. You know, the vast majority of Americans do not want to repeal the existing healthcare system, ACA, and it affects everyone. If you have a parent, you're a middle-class family working hard, you have a parent in a nursing home, the odds are 2 out of 3 that Medicaid paid for it. God forbid you have a teenager or a young person in their 20s who has opioid addiction, and you need some kind of treatment and help. Medicaid pays for that. You're a family, middle class, born with a child with a severe disability. Healthcare doesn't pay for that, but Medicaid does. So these kinds of things, to pull them away, and what the president did yesterday is going to hurt millions and millions of middle class and poor people, is the wrong way to do it. Obamacare's not perfect. We should try to improve it. But it doesn't mean you take it away and hurt people who had through no fault of their own, need health care. Well, the problem with buying health care outside the state is the outside state people pick off the healthiest customers, and that raises the rates on everybody else. So it's very good for the insurance companies. It's not so good for average folks. Other questions? Channel 13.
Yes. Talk about the Harvey Weinstein situation that came in. You said that you were giving it away.
Yeah, you know, I thought what Harvey Weinstein has done is despicable. And whatever punishment the law requires, he should get. He came to occasional fundraisers of mine over the last decades. The minute I heard what he did, I took the money and donated it to groups that deal with women who were sexually abused.
Explain to us the executive orders from yesterday that the president signed
On health care.
on health.
Yeah, the executive orders that the president signed on health care, one of them will allow out-of-state companies to come in to New York State. Now, people say that's good, that's competition, but they don't have to abide by the rules we've set up in New York State that protect patients. So they'll come in and, as I said, pick off the most healthy people and leave everybody else, and that's going to raise everybody else's healthcare rates. They'll pick off the wealthier people. So you're middle class or poorer person, your healthcare rates go up. So it's really unfair. Everyone should have to play by the same rules, every insurance company. That's what one of the things the president's order does. The second is there's a proposal, it's called cost sharing, where we give money to the insurance companies, but only if they keep premiums and deductibles and co-pays down. He's taking that away. So it's estimated that people's premium would go up 20% in the first year by what the president did. It's wrong. And many Republicans, Lamar Alexander, John Thune, Susan Collins, oppose it too. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Weren't those subsidies declared to be illegal by a judge?
Well, one judge declared them to be out, not illegal, but not garnered by law, but they should have appealed it, because I thought that one judge was wrong. And there's the option to continue them.
Is your thinking is he's basically trying to dismantle Obamacare by himself?
I think he's really sabotaging the healthcare system because he's angry that the Congress didn't do what he wanted. You don't take it out, fight with us, but don't take it out on average folks. Yeah, Lamar Alexander, he's a Republican from Tennessee. Patty Murray, she's a Democrat, are trying to get together and undo this in a bipartisan way. And I am fully supportive of what they are doing. And I've talked to Lamar. I see him in the gym all the time. I talked to Patty. She's a very good negotiator, and encourage them to get together. And I think you'd get a majority of both Democrats and Republicans supporting it if they could come to an agreement, which would undo what the president is trying to do. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I'm one of the very fortunate people in this area of Polk County to work for a school district. So I always was provided with wonderful health care.
Nurse.
Children were provided with wonderful health care. However, I feel that it is the United States' responsibility, not duty, responsibility to cover all of the citizens for health care. The same way that we cover their public education. It's important that the health care be as important to people as education. And not just the ones that can afford it, or the ones that are lucky enough to work in a school district or a public area. I want to know how close we are to being able to provide good health care, responsible health care to all.
It's a goal of mine that I share with you, but right now we're spending our time preventing them from rolling back what we have. When we win that fight, and we will win it, we can then move forward to cover more people at a lower cost so they could afford it. Okay, so I'm going to tell a final story. I like to tell this story in this county if we're finished with questions. I like to tell stories. One last question. Yes?
Your reaction to the president announcing his intentions to decertify Iran?
Well, I'm going to put out a statement on that. So I'll leave that for my statement. Okay, I'll do it that way. Because I haven't seen exactly what he said yet. He did it at 11 o'clock. Yeah. Okay, so here's my final story. So when I was running in '98 against Senator D'Amato, he was the incumbent, he said, some of you have heard this, but I still like to tell it. He said, if Schumer's elected, I was from Brooklyn, New York. If Schumer's elected, you'll never see him west of the Hudson. He'll just be some New York City guy. So to disprove that, I said, if God willing I'm elected, I will visit every county every year. No, every county my first year. Well, I won, so I did. And one of the first counties I visited in 1999 was Fulton County. And I wanted to meet with the county legislature. So I called them and say I want to meet, and they say, we don't want to meet with you. They were 11-0 Republican. I'm a Democrat. They said they didn't even want to meet with me. I won. But the then editor of your Johnstown newspaper, a very fine woman named Pat Beck, wrote an editorial. And she said, look, I didn't vote for Schumer. Our newspaper didn't support Schumer. But he won. We should meet with him. So they were sort of shamed into it, and they met with me grudgingly. And they said, all right, let's see how good you are. And for several years, Walmart wanted to build its first distribution center in the Northeast. I believe in the town of Florida or Fonda?
In Johnstown.
In Johnstown, okay. They wanted, and it was 1,000 new jobs. But the Army, they said to me, the Army Corps of Engineers won't let us build it. And they took me over to where they wanted to build it. It was because the Wetlands Act, the Army Corps said the Wetlands Act wouldn't let them build it. I went there. It was a normal place. It had a little stream on it. So I called up the head of the Army Corps, and I said, Colonel, he was a colonel there in Buffalo who have jurisdiction. I said, Colonel, what's going on here? Why don't there's 1,000 jobs? This place is hurting. It lost the leather industry. And he said, well, Senator, no, he was nice. He said, Senator, it's not us, it's the Fish and Wildlife. Here's the lady who's the head of the Fish and Wildlife in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So I call her up, and she's on our high horse. And she says, well, Senator, you voted for the Wetlands Act, and it's a wetlands. I said, ma'am, I visited. It's a little stream. She said, and I said, and the Wetlands Act called for protecting waters of national significance. Those were the words in the legislation. I said, that was for the Everglades, for the Mississippi River, maybe for the Hudson River, but not for a little stream in Fulton County. She said, well, we at Fish and Wildlife have determined that if we see a migratory fowl that crosses national borders using a waterway, it's a waterway of national significance, and we have pictures of 3 Canadian geese drinking in this stream. The poor dear Canadian geese. I used to have to clean up my daughter's soccer field of the goose droppings to get her to play before the game because we had so many of these Canadian geese. Anyway, I said, ma'am, I voted for the Wetlands Act. Sorry, you're right. But that's not what it intended. You've gone way beyond, and this is why people hate Washington. I'll go all the way to the president unless you change it. P.S. She changed it. And P.S. at the groundbreaking of the Walmart Center, it's now 10 years old or so, the county legislature, guess who they gave the scissor to cut the ribbon? So anyway. Thank you for coming, everybody. We'll fight for your hospital. Thank you.